Sagittarius. They will beg for your forgiveness. This person has 48 hours left to live. Sagittarius, have you ever felt like the universe was trying to send you a message? One so quiet, so specific, that if you blinked you might miss it? And yet, something in you just knows it's time. Time to release. Time to forgive. Time to listen. Welcome to Zodiac Wisdom. I'm Sophia, a psychologist, astrologer, and your soul companion through the most sacred moments of awakening. If this is your first time here, please consider subscribing, liking, or sharing this video. Not to boost numbers, but to spread healing energy through every corner of our shared sky. Today, I'm here to tell you something rare. Something the universe only says once. Someone from your past is being called to face the consequences of their choices. They may reach out to you. They may be facing the end of something, life, time, or simply the wall of their own regret. And you, Sagittarius, are being given one final opportunity. Not to reopen wounds, but to release what no longer belongs in your future. Not for them, but for you. Stay with me until the very end. This isn't just a story. It's a spiritual turning point. A message sent not to your mind, but to your soul. And if you let it reach you, it could change the way you carry everything from this moment forward. If something stirs in you, if a name, a face, or a memory quietly appears, don't push it away. Just breathe. Let your heart stay open. And if it resonates, leave a word in the comments below. Because when your truth is witnessed, even by strangers, it becomes part of your healing. You didn't arrive here by chance. You are here because your soul is ready. Gate 1, the final crossroads of the heart. Sagittarius, if you're hearing this, I need you to understand something important, not just intellectually but deep in your bones. Forgiveness is not weakness. It is not surrender. It is the most courageous act your soul can ever perform. In the great cosmic map of your life, this moment has been marked since before you were born. A moment when someone from your past, someone who once held your heart in their hands and then disappeared, will attempt to return, not to claim love again, but to ask for one final gift, your forgiveness. And here you are, standing at the threshold between memory and destiny. Maybe it's a phone call. Maybe it's a dream that keeps visiting your sleep. Maybe it's just a heaviness in your chest every time a certain name is spoken. You once loved this person with the wild, unwavering spirit that only a Sagittarius can give. You saw their potential, not just their pain. You offered light without conditions, and in return, they walked away with silence, or worse, with betrayal. They chose something else, someone else, something that made no sense to you. And you? You were left with unanswered questions and 1,000 unspoken goodbyes. But time, as always, did what it does best. It moved. And so did you. You built yourself again. Not out of bitterness, but out of truth. Not by forgetting, but by forgiving yourself first. You learned to walk with that pain, not let it define you. You laughed again. You healed. You stopped looking back. Until now. Because now, that soul is facing a wall. A wall that no one can climb for them. A wall made of their own regret, their own unraveling, their own karmic reckoning. And suddenly, you are the only person whose voice can bring them peace. But here's the truth. You don't owe them your voice. I want to tell you about a woman named Claire. She was a Sagittarius too. When she was 27, she fell in love with someone who couldn't love her back the way she needed. He was broken, unavailable, but she believed in him more than he ever believed in himself. He left her on a rainy Wednesday. No explanation. Just vanished. It took her 3 years to stop waking up hoping he'd return. And when he finally did, 10 years later, it wasn't with roses. It was with a terminal diagnosis. He said, "I'm not here to make it right. I just didn't want to die without hearing your voice one more time." And Claire, the woman who once cried on bathroom floors and rewrote herself in silence, looked him in the eye and said, "You already heard it. Every time I chose joy. Every time I moved forward. Every time I forgave you without a word." That was it. She didn't need revenge. She didn't need closure. She had already closed the door with love. Dear Sagittarius, someone may be coming to you now through a text, a message, a memory with the same kind of weight. And this moment is not about going back. It's about stepping forward into your own truth. You see, forgiveness isn't about accepting them again. It's about releasing yourself from the contract of pain. And sometimes the act of forgiving is not for the other person to hear. It's for the universe to witness. So if your heart is trembling right now, if a face just crossed your mind, write this down. I forgive to be free. I release to be whole. No one ever teaches us how to forgive someone who never apologized. But Sagittarius, that is your superpower. You were born to break cycles, not with anger but with wisdom. You carry ancient fire in your heart. You've walked through storms barefoot and laughed in the rain. You've felt what it's like to love someone who didn't know how to receive it, and you didn't let it turn you bitter. Now the universe is asking, can you look into the eyes of someone who once hurt you and say, I no longer belong to your story? Because that moment, if it comes, is sacred. That moment is your freedom disguised as heartbreak. And if they never call, if they pass in silence or leave the world without a word, you will still be free. Because you no longer need their voice to validate your growth. You are no longer the one chasing peace. You are the peace. This is your final test, Sagittarius. Not to see if you can go back, but to see if you can stand in your light when the shadows knock again. And I promise you, what's waiting on the other side of this act of soul cleansing is not emptiness. It is radiance. Gate 2, the karmic flame that purifies everything. Sagittarius, you are now walking through a fire. But it is not the kind of fire that burns. It is the kind of fire that cleanses. You have carried lifetimes of emotions inside your heart. Some were yours, some were inherited. You've walked with invisible burdens on your shoulders. Silent betrayals, quiet disappointments, love that asked you to shrink, and loyalty that demanded your silence. Through it all, you kept walking. You told yourself, I'm strong. I can handle it. And you were right. But strength is not always about enduring. Sometimes it's about letting the fire touch what no longer belongs to you and letting it go. In the days ahead, something sacred is happening inside your soul, Sagittarius. You are not just moving on from a person or a story, you are being purified. The universe is removing the threads that have tangled your truth for far too long. Threads of guilt, threads of obligation, threads of what if and what could have been. Let me tell you about David. He was a 45-year-old Sagittarius who spent most of his life trying to earn the love of a father who never said, I'm proud of you. Every career choice David made, every relationship he pursued, was subconsciously driven by that hunger to be seen. One day, his father fell seriously ill. In the final 48 hours, he asked for David. When David entered the hospital room, his father looked at him with tired eyes and whispered, You didn't deserve the way I treated you. I just didn't know how to love better. David cried, but not from sadness. He cried because in that moment he realized he no longer needed those words to heal. He had already done the work. The apology was just the final ember falling into ash. Sagittarius, this might be your moment too. Maybe someone from your past, family, lover, or even a former friend, is about to face a truth too late. They may not know how to say it. Their words may stumble, or they may never speak at all. But that doesn't matter, because you have already begun releasing. The karmic gate is not a door they must walk through. It is a door you are choosing to close. When you forgive, you are not letting them win. You are stopping the wheel. You are breaking the pattern for yourself, and for the generations that came before and will come after. This act of grace is not small. It echoes through the timelines. It turns pain into wisdom and silence into legacy. If you're feeling more tired lately, if your dreams have been strange, if you found yourself crying without a clear reason, this is not weakness. This is purification. Your body, your soul, your spirit, they are letting go of everything that does not resonate with your truth anymore. And yes, there will be confusion. Yes, there might be temptation to re-engage, to answer that message, to fix what was never yours to fix. But this time, Sagittarius, you are not a rescuer. You are not a savior. You are a soul returning to itself. Repeat this softly to yourself, even if your voice shakes. I do not carry what is not mine. I do not hold what does not lift me. I do not shrink to make others comfortable. These aren't just affirmations. They are declarations of sovereignty. Because here's the truth no one tells you. Karma isn't always about revenge. Karma is about balance. And right now, the scales are being adjusted. The energy you gave without games, without manipulation is coming back to you. Not through the one who took it, but through people who will finally recognize it. You are about to attract connections that are aligned with the frequency of your healing. People who speak your language of honesty. People who don't ask you to explain why you feel so deeply. People who say, "Thank you for being exactly who you are." But they can only enter after this last karmic residue has been washed away. So when that call comes, whether in the form of a real conversation or a dream, or even just a sudden wave of emotion, pause. Breathe. Look at yourself in the mirror and say, "I have already made peace." Sagittarius, you don't need to fight anymore. You don't need to prove. You don't need to wait for them to change. Because you already did. Gate 3, the sacred silence and your soul's return. Sagittarius, do you hear that? No thunder. No shouting. Only the sound of your own breath. Only the steady rhythm of a heart that has walked through fire and come out luminous. This is the moment you've unknowingly prepared for your whole life. Not a grand epiphany, not someone crawling back with poetic apologies, but a sacred silence where you finally return to yourself. In this silence, your soul remembers. Not the pain, not the betrayal, but the essence of who you've always been before the world asked you to be less. You've been misunderstood, dear Sagittarius. People saw your wildness but not your wisdom. They mistook your strength for indifference, and your honesty for sharpness. But beneath that fire is a deep, ancient calm. You were never meant to fit into other people's expectations. You were meant to burn away the false and illuminate the real. That's why this chapter isn't just a goodbye. It's an honoring. It's the universe telling you, you've passed the test not by winning, but by not becoming what hurt you. Let me tell you about Maya. She was a Sagittarius who, after years of giving her all to a toxic marriage, found herself alone at 52. One night the phone rang. Her ex-husband, now terminally ill, asked to see her. But she didn't go. Not out of spite. Not out of hatred. She sat in meditation that evening and said out loud, "I forgive you, but I return to myself. This is not my ending to live through anymore." And just like that, the energy unhooked. The nightmares stopped. The guilt evaporated. And for the first time in decades, Maya slept with no weight in her chest. Sagittarius, this is your Maya moment. The universe is inviting you into a portal. Not to relive, not to reply, but to release. Because the truth is this. You have already healed in silence. You've rebuilt your life not with fireworks, but with small sacred choices. Choosing kindness when you could have been cruel. Letting go of resentment even when no apology came. Trusting in your worth even when no one reminded you. These are the holy acts no one saw but the universe did. And now it is time to reap their reward. You are not here to prove anything. You are not here to rescue someone from their fate. You are not a shelter for the storms others refuse to face. You are the sun after the storm. You are the quiet revolution. You are the soul that survived not by closing off, but by opening wider than the pain. If they call you Sagittarius and the voice on the other end is trembling, pause. Place your hand over your heart. Ask yourself, do I want to speak to comfort them? Or do I choose silence to protect my peace? Because this time silence is not absence. It is presence. It is the sacred moment where karma completes itself. I no longer remain where love is absent. I no longer chase clarity in those who once chose confusion. I no longer shrink to be understood. Write this down if your heart trembles. I have returned to myself. I am free. I am whole. And as you write it, something unexplainable will shift inside you. A release. A lightness. A knowing. Not just that the cycle is closed, but that your new story, your true story, has already begun. Conclusion: the light was always you. Sagittarius, if you've made it this far, know this. You didn't just survive something, you transcended it. Not because someone apologized, not because closure came neatly wrapped in a final conversation, but because you chose peace even without permission, and that choice was revolutionary. You now understand that forgiveness isn't a door back into pain. It's the key out of it. You learned that healing is not loud, not something you announce, but a quiet, unshakable reclamation of your soul. And you, dear Sagittarius, you have reclaimed it. This story was never really about the person who hurt you. It wasn't even about the karma they now carry. This story was always about you remembering your light in the darkest room. Because when they left, when they betrayed, when they disappeared, something else quietly began. Your soul's return. Your voice rising. Your truth growing too large to contain. You didn't heal to be noble. You healed because you were tired of carrying what didn't belong to you. That is the highest form of courage. Walking away not to hurt someone, but to protect what's sacred inside you. And now, Sagittarius, the universe is clearing the stage. The people who once misunderstood your light will fall silent. The masks that once fooled you will fall away. You will no longer search for signs, you will become the sign. This is not a new chapter. This is a new book. In the pages ahead, love will not feel like begging. Friendship will not feel like adjusting. Peace will not require sacrifice. You'll no longer wonder if you're too much for others. You'll simply understand that you were never meant to be small. So if the call comes literally or energetically, you now know what to do. You don't need to answer from pity. You don't owe closure to someone who once closed the door on you. You only owe your soul one thing: freedom. Freedom to walk into your next season with clarity. Freedom to feel without fear. Freedom to finally, unapologetically, become the version of you that pain tried to kill but couldn't. So write it down. Not for the world to read, but for the universe to witness. I am no longer the wound. I am the healing. I am no longer what was taken. I am what remains. I am no longer the silence. I am the voice. And I am ready now, not to go back, but to rise. And when you look back, you'll realize the universe never abandoned you. It was always waiting for you to remember. The light you were looking for was always you.